Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and this week is the beginning of a two-parter covering the Jurassic Park franchise now. And for this first part, I'm joined by Rowan after a extended absence, I guess you could say.
Hello.
So for this week we will be covering the original Jurassic Park, the sequel, The Lost World, and the threequel, Jurassic Park 3. So, sort of in a general sense, what do you think of Jurassic Park as like a franchise?
I think the concept is great. Obviously, in my opinion, the first one is just unmatched. Second and third one just fall short of what the first one managed to just do.
Yeah.
You know, the first one was just kind of the first attempt at a dinosaur-centered film, pretty much ever, out of a documentary format.
Yeah.
I think it did it perfectly because it sort of encapsulated why dinosaurs are awe-inspiring but also terrifying.
I think
did capture that as much.
Yeah, the sequels definitely fall short, but we'll get to that momentarily. So for the first one, I remember I watched this film when I was younger. I think I watched all of them, like the first three, when I was younger. The first one I think was probably the one I watched the most when I was younger. I mean, I don't remember, of course, but it is. I mean, I think most would agree it is the best one of the entire franchise. I think no one really would argue that fact. I definitely don't know anyone who would disagree with that. So, yeah, do you have any sort of... I presume you must have seen this film when you were younger, right?
Oh, yeah, I saw it ages ago. I remember sitting down and watching it with my dad, just one random afternoon, and just being inspired by it because of how well made it was. Even for me being maybe like 9 or 10, I understood how good of a film it was.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty rare since when I was that young. And I think that goes for you as well.
Yeah, I think, like, I rewatched it earlier this week. I rewatched all of them for the purpose of this, and it's been, like, a long time since I've seen them. I don't think I'd seen any of them for 4 or 5 years. Like, I don't remember the last time I'd seen any of them. So I rewatched the first one, and I remember watching it, and the scene where they like arrive at the park and we first see the dinosaurs on the island, the Brachiosaurus and all the others. Yeah. And I just remember watching that like a few days ago, and like I was getting a bit like, I got like a tear in my eye because I was just like, I forgot how magical this film is, and it's like, it's such a perfectly made scene, with performance and direction and the music as well. I would argue this is John Williams' best score. That like I would argue it is the best thing he's ever done, and and that's saying a lot because he's made a lot of really great scores, but I just can't think of like anything that has been matched before or since, really. Like, I just think Jurassic Park is like you could argue.
I mean, a film made in what, the 80s?
A 1990,
film made in the 80s, and it still holds up.
1993, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, for a film made in the 90s, it holds up remarkably well visually to this day.
Yeah. No, sorry.
It still rivals some of the big films today, in my opinion, just because of the practical effects, Practical effects, in my opinion, always look better than CGI, unless you're doing something ridiculous like the Space Odyssey. But
yeah, on this watch, actually, I will say it was much easier for me to tell which shots were like the CGI effects and which ones were the practical effects. I think it was like a lot of the T-Rex stuff, like when it's coming through the fence, I could tell like, okay, that's obviously CGI, but most of it when it's like when it's touching the fence, when it's like its arm is like on the fence, or when it's like, like when it eats the goat, like that is all practical. But like when it comes through the fence, I was like, oh, that's obviously CGI. But like it still looks pretty solid. Like like I still like it. It isn't like I know some people aren't able to tell, and I think, well, for me personally, I am able to tell which is which, but I still think the effects look really great, and they are sort of blended seamlessly together, where you don't really, where like if you show someone it for the first time, it might be harder for them to tell, which one is what's like real and what isn't, But like,
I know what you mean,
mm,
but I mean, even this is kind of going a little bit off topic, but it relates. I was watching Top Gun Maverick last night, and
mm,
picking between the CGI and the practical shots was just it was mind numbing almost because you could tell that most of those shots were realistic, and the shots that looked realistic, not well, sorry, the shots that were real practical,
mm,
just had a different feeling to them, and that definitely applies to Jurassic Park. You know, the
yeah,
shots with the real animatronic T Rex and the real animatronic Brontosaurus just have a different feel
yeah,
to them. It just feels more tangible and more
yeah,
present,
yeah,
which just elevates the film so much more.
yeah, like. Yeah, like a great example is the raptor scene, the kitchen scene with the raptors, because those were real animatronics, and I think that helps elevate the tension because you feel like they're actually there. Like I think I think a fair bit of that kitchen scene was with actual animatronic
Yeah,
raptors, and so I think that helped to elevate the tension because it just seemed real. And I think that it's sort of something that the others sort of lack. Like the sequels, they don't, like the raptors don't feel as scary or like as threatening because you just are like, oh, that's obviously CGI. It's like obviously not real, Whereas this, most of the dinosaur stuff was with animatronics, so it feels real. And
yeah,
like,
and I mean, you've got what is it? The later Jurassic World films, which are 100% CGI, pretty much.
yeah,
The
pretty much.
Raptors in those films, especially with someone like the Raptor Blue, they try to put a personality into him. And
Yeah,
I mean, they're more dynamic and they're more sort of what's the word? They can do more with the Raptors than they could have
yeah,
ever done in the original,
but
but it still has a different type of yeah. They feel more present and more tangible when they're actual animatronics.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
That's how I felt. Yeah, that's one of my biggest problems with the Jurassic World films. But I'll talk about that more next week. Is that the dinosaurs just aren't as in, like, even when they do, sort of splice and make new dinosaurs, they're not as
Yeah,
interesting because, like, I mean, creating new dinosaurs, I like that as a concept, but it's just the execution. The difference is all the Jurassic Park sequels, I would argue, are at best like decent. Like I don't think they have made a good Jurassic Park sequel, and they haven't made a good Jurassic Park sequel since the original, or just a Jurassic Park film since the original. Like I don't think
yeah,
like that. I would argue that none of them are really all that bad, but I would argue that comparatively they are quite terrible. Actually, like comparatively to the original, they are
yeah.
not.
Because I mean, you could consider the original a masterpiece. You
Yeah.
know, I know many people that do. I mean, even in my diploma right now that I'm doing,
Mm.
we had a debate on 20th century masterpieces, and
Mm.
um, Jurassic Park was up there with, you know, stuff like The Shining, E.T. and
Mm.
Star Wars, and all of those
Yeah.
classic films that are just considered masterpieces.
Yeah.
And it's very common to have Steven Spielberg's name attached to them.
Yeah. It's
I
Steven.
think he was a titan of his time. He
Yeah.
still is, but I mean, when he was in his prime, he was just dropping amazing films left, right, and center every
Yeah.
single decade.
Yeah. Yeah, this is. I would say this might be one of Spielberg's best directed films. Like, and I've seen like a fair amount of Spielberg's work. I've seen like most of like the classic stuff he's done. Indiana Jones, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, E.T. Jaws, Jurassic Park. All those films. And while I would argue Jaws could possibly be like in terms of a directed work, is probably one of the most impressive because of just how the problems with that film. but I would argue this is like sort of his most I
His
don't know how to
most
put
successful directorial debut, or not debut, but endeavor.
yeah, like yeah, I would say that like because like Jaws was, you know, it was very difficult to make Jaws, and the fact that it was he pulled that off so well is, you know, a testament. But this there was even more, because that was just like one animatronic. It was multiple versions of the shark, but it was just like one sort of creature he had to focus on. Whereas with this, he had all different kinds of dinosaurs that he had to, you know, work with, and that is harder because, you know, one animatronic is difficult, but it's easier to manage than all these other ones, and you know,
Like
like
4 or 5 of them in
five,
one
yeah,
scene. Yeah,
yeah, and you know, like at this time, he was also making Schindler's List. Like I think he finished production on Jurassic Park, and then like sort of went over to Schindler's List. I think it was or something. Like he was
yeah.
working on them concurrently, and then after this, after 1993, he just sort of took a break from filmmaking for 4 years because he was just worn out and just tired. You know.
And then didn't he come out with Saving Private Ryan?
No, he had Lost World was the next thing he did, which we will discuss
Ah,
soon. It's amazing that both of those films came out as well as they did, and are just like incredible films. When he was like, I'm not exactly entirely sure on the production of them, but I assume he was working more or less on them sort of concurrent, because Jurassic Park was like 3 years from like 1990 to 1993 was when they were making it. So I'm assuming Schindler's List was sort of after he had already started pre-production on Jurassic Park at the very least.
yeah. They were surprisingly close, and and for something that involves so much animatronics,
Yeah.
it's a miracle that they were actually able to get the financing and the time to make both of those films as good as they are. And I mean, with Schindler's List, the practical effects and the set design was so intricate and so
Yeah,
well maintained that
yeah,
it
and
was just,
accurate to the time
yeah,
period. Yeah.
it was well researched. And the fact that not only did both of them become classics,
Yeah.
they are considered some of the best films of their eras.
This film doesn't it there's no signs of like a tired director. Like this movie is so well paced and so well put together on a technical level that it's that I like, if I was told this had come out, like I don't know, like if I'd been like, I feel like this is a film that holds up today, and if I was told it had come out like this year, I would believe you, because it works so well, and has stood the test of time for nearly 30 years at this point. Just, and this film just has so many, because this is, you know, like this is just a great film, and we both love it, but there's so many great parts of this film. I think the cast, for example, work really well for this kind of film. Like, you don't need great actors per se. Like, you need good actors, of course, but you don't need you don't need like the best of the best, top level, you know, like Academy Award winning actors for this film. You just need good actors who are able to sell the story, and I think
Yeah.
they all work pretty well.
And
Uh,
the fact that the fact that 2 of the leads came back for sequels was is a testament on how well the film is made. Because I
mm,
mean, an actor, if a film is poorly made and poorly directed, the actors will not want to come back at all.
yeah,
There's just no way. The fact that even though Spielberg was so pressured by 2 films and the actors still wanted to come back is, I mean, not many people would pick up on that, but
yeah.
it's, and then also they come back for what is it, sixth movie now? This is
Yes,
the
the six.
sixth
Yeah,
movie.
that's the
Yeah,
Dominion is the sixth one.
Dominion, and they're back, and
Yeah.
they look like they were really keen to play the roles again.
And I don't blame them. Like, I would argue for most of these actors, this is what they will be like remembered for. You know, like I think this
Yeah,
is what, you know, Sam Neill and Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum
Jeff
maybe
Goldblum has a couple other
a
roles
couple
that
other
stand
things,
out.
yeah. But
Yeah,
like Sam Neill and Laura Dern, like this is what they will be remembered for forever, and that's not a bad thing. Like, they are really good in this movie, and I think they work really well together, and off the other characters as well.
mm,
Like,
yeah.
and you
I
know,
think back then, I think both of them were relatively unknown actors, including Jeff Goldblum
mm,
all 3 of them were relatively unknown.
yeah, yeah, like yeah, I know they'd been in stuff. You know, I think Jeff Goldblum had done The Fly, the 1986 one, but I don't think he'd done much else besides that. I think
Yeah.
Just looking at this cast here, I think Richard Attenborough was probably one of the bigger names. He'd done Gandhi, Best Picture for Gandhi. Maybe Samuel L. Jackson, but he hadn't done like Pulp Fiction or any of like Tarantino stuff. So, like I think Richard Attenborough was probably the biggest name at the time, anyway, because he'd
I
won
think
Oscars and all that kind of stuff.
Jurassic Park was one of those films that was so impactful that the actors involved used that film as a springboard and just became huge.
Yeah,
There's always films that actors are just unknown from. I
yeah,
mean, even a relevant show now, Stranger Things. I mean, Millie Bobby Brown was a nobody before Stranger Things, and now
yeah,
her career is huge. You know,
yeah, yeah. This
so
definitely, yeah,
yeah, a movie that is able to springboard actors into their careers is always a film that you can tell will have some good acting in it. I
yeah.
mean, I can name a handful of films that I know are springboard films that just elevated these actors into huge roles.
Yeah, like like these, like something like Star Wars as well. I would argue was also a major catalyst for a lot of those actors, like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford in particular, because Harrison Ford
Yeah,
hadn't really done a whole lot pre Star Wars, but then like after that came out, he did Indiana Jones, he did Blade Runner, he did all these films post Star Wars, and Jurassic Park was sort of the sort of a more a 1993 equivalent of like springboarding these sort of the three leads of Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum to like major Hollywood actors into into
yeah.
megastars, basically, you know. But like I think the entire cast more or less works really well. I think the kids, for example, are not as annoying as they could, like, because kid actors historically, for me anyway,
Yeah,
are
they're quite
pretty
notorious about being
notoriously
bad.
bad. But I think the two kids in this one are actually really, I don't want to say really good, but like they are better than they could be. Like they are better
They
written.
don't take you out of the film.
Yeah,
Is
like
what
they
is the best way to put it.
yeah, like they feel like real kids, and they're decent. Like they're decent actors. Like they're not amazing. Like I've seen phenomenal child performances, but you don't really need phenomenal ones for this kind of movie. You just need good ones that will not take you out of the film, and I think they work for their sort of roles and sort of for what they are given to do. I think like they're pretty, they're decent, solid actors.
Mm.
So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and there's just so many great things. I didn't make any notes while watching any of these films because I've seen them enough to where I don't really need to make notes. But like I always remember what I found with films is that stuff I watched with when I was younger, I didn't really get as much from. Like this film I sort of appreciated more as I got older. Like I always liked it, but I got more from it, and I understood more things because I like the whole thing about Dennis Nedry and like stealing the dinosaurs off the island. Is sort of like, it is kind of a go nowhere moment, like a sort of a go nowhere sort of storyline. Like he doesn't actually, they don't get off, so it's sort of like he gets his comeuppance when he gets eaten by the dinosaur. But it is kind of, it is a bit go nowhere actually, isn't it? They don't
But
really,
it's surprisingly memorable.
yeah, it, because usually with films, if there's go nowhere scenes or storylines, usually you get annoyed. But I'm not even really annoyed at it. I still think it is very
I think
well.
I think what made it so memorable was the actor. He was
Yeah,
just a bumbling idiot, and he was just funny to watch.
yeah. I thought
And
Wayne Knight was a lot of
his
fun in this.
yeah, his methods of actually obtaining the was it the genes or the DNA or whatever
Yeah,
through a whipped cream can, I thought
yeah,
was just I've
yeah,
always thought is funny.
yeah. I think that's
Um,
iconic, like prop in this film.
yeah,
And it's really saying something that an iconic part of this film is that can. Like
in a movie about
in a
dinosaurs.
movie about dinosaurs, people still like, and it's so quotable too. Like, oh, Dachshund, we've got Dachshund here. Like everybody knows that line, and it's
Yeah, and
so
bit
you
like
say the magic word. Yeah,
it's
like
just he's has nothing to do with dinosaurs apart from taking the genes,
Yeah, and being
but
eaten
he's
by dinosaurs.
still arguably one of the most memorable parts of the film.
Yeah, and I
Weird.
do really love his presence. Like he's one of the more entertaining characters. Like because a lot of the characters I think they're sort of like they're in awe of the dinosaurs, but they're sort of like you could argue like the straight man. Like they're not sort of like only really Nedry and Ian Malcolm are sort of the more larger characters, if that makes sense. Like everyone else is sort of grounded in reality, sort of like regular people, and then you've got these other Nedry and Malcolm who are a bit more open and a bit louder and a bit more they sort of chew the scenery a bit more with their dialogue and that kind of stuff.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, no, you go.
oh, I just got to say that. No, actually, what were you going to say? Because is this?
I I was just gonna add to it, but then I realized I was just gonna repeat you. So
Yeah, but like I really love Jeff Goldblum, and I really think he's probably the one of the best part of this film. I would say in Lost World less so, but like in this one, he's probably my favorite. Like, yeah, he's my favorite character because he's just the most entertaining in sort of a sort of a group of characters that are just sort of not boring, but they're just like they're not as big a performances. They're just sort of there.
yeah,
Yeah, I think like there's just so much great stuff in this film. You know, there's so many just iconic moments. You know, like I mean, the scene where the T-Rex breaks out of the enclosure is just like iconic at this point, and that is such a like because everybody talks about the raptor scene and the kitchen scene, which I do love and is maybe the best scene of the film, but when the T-Rex breaks out, like it's just so like everything's on point in that scene, you know, like
hmm
every like you know the performances are all at some of their best in the film. That the T-Rex looks pretty good in both the animatronic and the CGI. You know, there's the lawyer being eaten and just another kind of strangely iconic moment, like just he gets eaten in the toilet. Like there's just so many, you know, it's just like I just think it's like that's a very tense scene, and like the raptor scene is obviously tense, but I think that scene is equally as tense.
I think bring it back to the animatronics. I think the animatronics actually elevate that scene to be far more tension filled because
Mm.
the T Rex can actually touch the car, and it does touch the car. It moves the car,
Yeah,
and it looks like it moves the car instead of it just being sort of a weird, rubbery
yeah,
movement
CGI, yeah,
that
movement, yeah,
90s films used to have.
yeah. There's some definitely spurred filmmakers on to use CGI a lot more in far more because they I think a lot of filmmakers who use CGI a lot didn't understand that Jurassic Park was as a combination of both real like practical effects and just sort of CGI effects, and they just sort of thought, oh, Jurassic Park did it, so we'll just use only like CGI, and a lot of those films don't hold up now because of the outdated CGI, and there's no melding of practical effects with CGI effects.
Because, I mean, films of that era, I think Spielberg especially understood how CGI was limited at that
Yeah,
time. Over reliance on it during the 90s could actually cripple the film. Because, I mean, you
yeah.
look at Spielberg, look at every single one of Spielberg's project from like the early 2000s back. And you
Mm.
look at Jaws, Jurassic Park, yeah, and even Saving Private
E.T.
Ryan,
Yeah,
E.T., Saving Private Ryan, all practical effects,
yeah,
you know.
and yeah, but like yeah, CGI wasn't as yeah like he's always used practical effects, and even now he seems to continue sort of be you know being practical with stuff and building real sets that the actors can you know physically interact with. You know, like even in West Side Story, which came out at the end of last year, it's you know all the sets and it's all real. You know, I mean, because
Yeah.
other filmmakers would more than likely use some more CGI to help to do stuff with it, but it seems like he's still sticking with you know like practical effects and CGI like only when necessary is seemingly what he's been doing for his career.
And
Yeah.
I think what directors should learn from it. Honestly, as someone
Mm,
who's trying to become a director,
mm,
I obviously don't have the ability to use CGI yet.
yeah.
But it's just more appealing to me, and it makes me more invested in the film when I see practical effects. And it always
Mm,
makes me sit up in my seat and say, "Oh my God, they did that on set. That's insane." You know,
Yeah.
even watching Top Gun last night, I told my mates beforehand, most of these shots are real.
Mm.
And my mate kept leaning over and saying, "Is that real? Is that real?" I consistently kept saying, "Yes, that's real. That's real. That really happened. They did that."
Yeah.
And I even blew myself away by saying, "Yeah, that's real. That's real." I'm thinking, wow. And it really brought me into the film more so because I knew that it was actually what they did. You know, that's what Jurassic Park did. They had a real T-Rex there and a real um, raptor there, you know, and it
Yeah.
sort of just it drags you into the film more so than say, I mean, the 2013 Godzilla, where they're just kind of a big CGI thing.
Yeah, this I like even the other Jurassic Park films. I feel don't understand what why the original works so well because a lot of them like the first three they sort of do have a mix of CGI effects and practical effects, but like in Jurassic Park 3 there's on my watch and we'll get to my thoughts on that film later. There was a lot more like obvious CGI in that film because it's seemingly there was a lot more of it, you know, like the I mean again we'll get to it, but I was like, oh, that's CGI, that's CGI, that's CGI, that's CGI. Oh, that's practical. Oh, back to CGI. You know, it sort of was that kind of thing of like it was more obvious in Jurassic Park 3, and it doesn't look as good because it relies on CGI a bit too much at a few points in that film.
Yeah, and I remember watching the original and the second movie back to back, and there's a scene in the second movie where the T-Rex is fully CGI for like an extended period, and
Yeah,
I'm thinking, and I just remember thinking like this looks good, but it looks significantly worse than it did in the original. And that film came out, what, like 3 or 4 years before the sequel?
yeah, like 4 years before. Yeah, that it's just interesting. Before we move on, because we are sort of transitioning to the Lost World. I just sort of got a few things I want to quickly touch on, and then we'll put a rating on it, and then we can move on. I do think this film like there's a couple moments which are a bit like where they sort of make dumb decisions, and that's like sort of a staple in these kinds of films. You sort of people make bad decisions, but it is kind of like a bit interesting when they send out Samuel L. Jackson's character to the Breakers to like reset them, and they just send him by himself with like no weapons or anything, and they don't have anyone to protect him. And I'm just like, I mean, I understand why they did that, but it is just like you did send like the only guy who can fix any of this stuff out by himself, you know. But like, that's just nitpicking, and
Yeah.
it's just basically just sort of pointing out logical inconsistencies in the plot. But I mean, this is a film about dinosaurs coming back to life. Like you can't really complain that much about it. Like I
Realism somewhat goes out the window when you're resurrecting dinosaurs.
yeah, so it is just nitpicking basically. But like it just, but I do love that scene where Ellie and Muldoon they leave the sort of underground compound and they go out and they see the raptors have broken out of their cage, and then Muldoon spots the raptors away, like sort of watching them, and then Ellie has to run and she has to go through the bunker by herself, and it's intercut with Gren and the kids climbing the fence, and it's just like a really nice tense scene because she has to turn them on. She's going to turn the fences on, but as you can see, but we see Tim is still climbing the fences, so you're just like, get down get off the fences before before you get electrocuted. And then, she gets chased by a raptor and Samuel L. Jackson is killed off screen, which I saw a thing that apparently the storyboards that we would have seen more of Samuel L. Jackson, Ray Arnold, Sam Jackson's character. I think we would have seen like other parts of his body besides like his arm falling on Ellie. Like we would have seen other parts, and I think they wisely skipped out on that. I think that would have been a bit much. Also, it probably would have been a bit too gruesome for this film, like because this film is. I was rewatching, and it's like, man, this film is quite violent for like essentially a family film. Like people are getting eaten, dinosaurs are eating other dinosaurs. Like it's It's a lot for this kind of film.
I mean, I think the 90s was kind of a transitional period for violence in films.
Yeah.
There was a lot of experimentation with it.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like they didn't really know the level of violence that they needed to put in blockbuster films.
Yeah.
Sometimes they went too far, and sometimes they just didn't go far enough.
Yeah. Like Jaws, for example, in like a lot of places is like a PG rated film, and it's like
Is
that.
it?
I don't know where if it is. I don't know if it might have changed. I think here it like it depends. I think when it initially came out is a yeah. So it says here the PG certificate of Jaws. Yeah, it's a PG.
Wow.
I believe this was before PG-13 was a thing, but still, like it's a like that's like Jaws is way more violent than
I would have
this.
thought it would have been at least an M.
Yeah, that's the for those listening, that's the Australian rating system. I mean, of course, it could be an M here, but I think in America it was a PG. It might have even been a PG when it came out here as well. Yeah, this film is great. There's so many just iconic scenes, so many iconic characters, moments. Just it just works on so many levels, and it really just is magic. Like I don't want to say that like modern films are bad or anything, like because I don't believe that, but I do certainly feel that a lot of modern day films try to go for magic, and they just don't succeed because Jurassic Park, like there are still films that just feel magic and just feel, you know, like this is like a once in a lifetime experience, but they are very much few and far between at this point in time anyway. And this is yeah, this film is just really just unbelievably great. It just I mean I think it's elevated. It's already I think it's a good even great film, but it's elevated by John Williams' score and like the ending where you know they all fly off and they manage to escape and they survive, and then you see the birds because that's the entire film. We've sort of been told that dinosaurs are birds are ancestors of dinosaurs as opposed to reptiles, and just like the music and the just the nut and the great shot of the helicopter flying, you know, into like the towards the setting sun and the ocean. It's just great. I just love this film. We've just basically been saying how great this film is for
Well, I mean, it is. There's
yeah
very, very, very few flaws with the film.
yeah
The only genuine flaw I have with the film is the weird continuity issue where when the T-Rex steps out of his enclosure,
oh
it's
yes
one level, but then when the characters go over the
yeah.
edge, it's just like a
It's
100
just
foot
it's
drop
yeah that's
for
very
some
weird.
reason.
Yeah. I
It's
didn't
the only issue I
even.
have with the film.
Yeah. That I didn't even really when I first saw it. I just because I would think I was just so in you know just so invested in the film and just in what was going on that I didn't think
Yeah,
about it. But on this rewatch, I was like, yeah, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Like that's just
it
not.
is very weird.
Yeah.
It's strange because people can easily gloss over it,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
because the time between when the T Rex steps out of the cage and when they go over is
Mm,
so long that
yeah.
really you kind of forget on how the T Rex got there. You're more focused on what the T Rex is doing, so you
Yeah.
kind of forget the geography of the cage.
Yeah.
So you're more likely to accept it. But then obviously on rewatches, you pay more attention to smaller
Yeah.
details, and then
Exactly.
yeah,
But I think that's just like a a compliment to Spielberg. Like this is like Spielberg is incredibly well known for just like the ending of Jaws, for example, is objectively stupid. Like if you take that scene in isolation, it is like ridiculous and it is just it doesn't make any sense. But in the context of the film, like if you've watched the entire film up to that point, you don't really care about the logical about like these the scientific accuracies of it because when he blows up that shark, you're just happy because he's saved the day, and you ignore how dumb it is, like how it doesn't make any sense. And that's what I kind of do with this the T-Rex scene is like I'm just so invested and it's just this film is so great that I just sort of ignore that and it doesn't really affect my opinion on the film at all. It doesn't impact my enjoyment in any way. It's just like a weird little sort of bit of like, that's a bit weird, but it's kind of needed for the story. Yeah, do you want to put a rating on this and then we can move
Oh,
on?
10 out of 10. Without hesitation, 10 out of 10.
Okay. I'm really not sure. I'm really flip flopping between a 9 and a 10. I've got it as a 9 now, so I'll say that for the moment. But it honestly, by the end of this, I could bump it to a 10. Honestly, like, it's just like it is so good, but like it is a great film, and I can see, I don't know, like I think it just might be like a couple of like sort of small nitpicky sort of elements and sort of a couple bits that are a bit off for me that's I think hold it back, but like I could easily bump it to a 10, by the end of this or tomorrow or whatever. So I'm gonna leave it as a 9 now because that's what I've got it as, but it could easily be bumped up to a 10 out of 10. Yeah, but yeah, no, I do get the 10 out of 10. It is pretty much, it is a masterpiece basically. Like it is a blockbuster masterpiece that's like a once in a lifetime movie, and Spielberg is so insane that he's made basically movies that other directors can only make like one of in a lifetime. Spielberg just keeps making just master, like once in a lifetime movies, with Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., and Jurassic Park. Like, it just keeps going, and like it's just a great film. The same cannot be said for the sequel, The Lost World, which I really didn't care for.
Oh my days. Oh my days.
I just, wow, okay. Wow. All right. So,
let's just begin with saying this film, in my opinion, is shocking.
Oh yeah. I've read the original book of Jurassic Park. It's a really great book. There's a lot of great stuff in it that they took out. The opening scene, one of the opening scenes of the first Jurassic Park book, I've not read The Lost World, but the opening scene of the book, or one of the opening scenes of the book, is the opening scene of Lost World, this film, where there's like there's like a rich, family, and they accidentally land on Isla Sorna, or is it Isla Nublar? The Isla Sorna, isn't it? The island where the dinosaurs.
The main island is Isla Nublar, and like the second island that A Lost World is set on is Isla Sorna.
Yeah. So yeah, this family, that's like one of the first scenes of it's like the opening scene of the book, of the original Jurassic Park book, is sort of similar to the opening scene of the first Jurassic Park film, where we see a worker who's been injured, but like he's taken to like a medical facility. And they're trying to explain it away, like this is what happened whereas in the film, the raptor basically runs and just sort of knocks the thing over and pulls the guy in. Again, another iconic, brilliant scene. It's a great scene. But this film, yes, the film opens with British family, and then a little girl goes walking off on a mysterious island by herself, which, I mean, I know kids are stupid and they walk off, but they've got all these people. They've got all these, like, I don't know what they are, like, they're people on the, they've got all these other, like, ship crew, yeah. And they're just like, they don't send one of them to look after the girl? Just go with it. Yeah, it's so... This we're going to be complaining a bit about this one, I feel.
This film has so many things wrong with it.
The
good things are overshadowed.
Yeah, there are good things. This is not like the worst film ever made. There are good things. It's just that the bad things take away so much from the good things. Like, first of all, Ian Malcolm is no longer an entertaining or likable character. He's just annoying now. Like, he's like, they took the worst parts of Malcolm from the first film.
Just complains.
Yeah,
the whole time.
He's just upset. And I understand that he's not happy about his girlfriend going to the dinosaur island. But it's just like, it almost feels like I guess it kind of makes sense that he's not as witty now because of what happened at Jurassic Park. But it's just not interesting. Like, he's just a boring character now after that. Like, I I'm just not interested in him anymore, you know? Like, and
Yeah.
none of the other characters in this film that we meet are interesting. Like, Vince Vaughn's character, he's not interesting. He's not likable. He's just, like, a bit of an ass. You know, Julianne Moore, what is she doing? Like, at
He's kind
certain...
of, yeah.
Like, the scene with the Stegosaurus, she just goes up to the Stegosaurus, this baby Stegosaurus, by itself, to take pictures, and I'm just like, you're going, like, and she has sort of theorizes that dinosaurs are very paternal animals and that they look after their young. And I'm just like, yeah, if you're going near a baby Stegosaurus, they're gonna attack you, and like they do attack her. And I'm just like, of course. What did you think was gonna happen? It's just mind-boggling that like these are meant to be like she's meant to be a great mind who knows what she's doing, and then like the first scene she gets attacked by dinosaurs, you know, like,
Yeah. It just seems a bit ridiculous, honestly.
and it's just like, and none of the other characters, you know, like, I just don't like, none of the characters in the film are particularly interesting. Like, there's no likable just characters that I'm like, oh, I want to see them live. I just wanted them all to die, honestly, because they were just so unlikable. Like, the original film had a couple unlikable characters, but most of the main cast were really nice people who you wanted to see get out. There's a kid in this one, and I didn't care if she lived or died. It was just so annoying that I just
Oh
wanted,
my god, the kid was so annoying.
like, oh, and the stupid fucking part where she uses her gymnastics to kick a raptor out a fucking window. Like, what is that? Like, I just don't understand how, like Spielberg made this film too. That's the crazy thing, is that Spielberg came back for this one after a 4-year hiatus. He made this, and like the guy writing this film is a great writer. You know, he wrote like Mission Impossible. He wrote the original Jurassic Park. He wrote, you know, like Spider-Man. You know, like he's like, the screenwriter has written really good films, and now he's just like, what went wrong? Like, I don't understand what went wrong with this film that created it to be so bad. You know, like,
Yeah. I've heard there was rust pre-production,
oh, of course it was. That's all.
because they wanted a sequel to the original as fast as possible. They
Yeah,
just didn't have a story,
yeah,
and Spielberg just didn't know how to write a story to the original,
yeah,
because it wrapped up pretty well, you know.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I assume they took elements from the original book, but like, I don't like. Of course, I don't know. I have not read The Lost World, so I cannot comment on it. Like, so I don't know how it was received. I'm just looking this up now, actually. So the book, seeming from what I've just been looking at for the last couple of seconds, is it seemed to have gotten a mixed response. Some thought like it was like, first of all, it spent 8 weeks as the bestseller in New York Times bestseller list, like during its release, and it remained on the list of bestsellers till like March of the next year. But a lot of the reviews I'm looking at are seemingly a kind of negative. They're like, oh, it's just like the same thing again, just not as good, or it's more action orientated, but it's not well written. I do wonder if the source material didn't help either, because, you know, I feel like it's a combination of, well, yeah, like you say, rushed pre-production, as well as, you know, possibly bad, not as like weaker source material to adapt from.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, I think it just feels like a rushed film. It just feels
Yeah,
rushed, you know? Like,
yeah,
there's nothing about it that says, yeah, this has been planned meticulously, and this
yeah,
feels like it deserves to be a sequel to the original.
yeah. And there's
Because,
just,
in my opinion, it doesn't justify its existence apart from just adapting the book.
yeah, it really just, yeah, no, the film definitely felt like to me, it just feels like, because we were just saying that like a few minutes ago that like the sort of logical inconsistencies in Jurassic Park, but you can ignore them because the movie's just magical and it's just so well made and so well written that you can ignore them. But it's hard to ignore them in this film where the characters make objectively bad decisions that no sane person would make. You know, like one of the prime examples is when they take the T-Rex. So Julianne Moore and Vince Vaughn's character, they take the T-Rex back to the trailer to help make it better and to fix its leg, and you know, and like surprise, it doesn't go well, and they get attacked by, you know, the other T-Rexes, and I'm just like, well, I mean, yeah, what like I'm not. How am I meant to feel invested for these characters if they're making bad decisions? Like, you guys are just, you're like, these people, they're asking to be killed by dinosaurs, basically, is what's going on. That's just how I looked at it. They were asking for it, and they are putting themselves in a position where the dinosaurs will eat them, but I don't feel worried for them because I think they should be.
Like the gymnastics scene.
It's so...
Some of these actions that these characters make are just mind-blowingly stupid.
Yeah,
like,
nah, it's just...
You can't just drop kick a raptor that's like maybe 7 times her body weight.
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh, it would have been so much better if she tries to kick it and she just fucking bounces off. I'm just
Imagine if she died.
like the raptor just, it sees her swing and then it just leaps after her. Like something like that would have been much better and much more interesting. Which, by the way,
yeah.
the raptor scene in this is so much weaker. Like, because the raptors, like the kitchen scene. Well, first of all, those are kids in that kitchen scene. It is 2 kids hiding from raptors in a very confined space. Like, they basically are more or less stuck. Like, because if they try going for the doors, the raptors will obviously run after them, and they can't do that. So they have to use their brains and their wits, and they sort of do all these things to evade the raptors. And in this one, like, they just run away. Like, they just go in, like Malcolm, he just gets in a car and he just like leans back like, as far as he can go and just hopes the raptor doesn't get to him, you know, like. But
also the raptors feel far more stupid than they did in the original.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they just don't seem as threatening. Like when one of them is chasing after Malcolm and he like runs into this room, and then the raptor like jumps through it and then jumps back out. And then Malcolm just rips the door off its hinges and it just gets pushed through like a glass window. I'm just like, okay, if this was the last movie, he would have been eaten by now. Like, the raptors wouldn't have.
Yeah,
because there's like 3 other
raptors far into Jurassic World as well.
Yeah,
like the raptors in those movies are smarter than they would be in the sequels to Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
but they're still just a bunch of idiots, you know?
Yeah, like, they aren't threatening anymore. That's the problem, is like they just are not threatening, and they should be. Like, they should be like the scariest thing, but they're just not in this movie.
They should, because they're a good juxtaposition to something like a T-Rex. They're small, nimble, and smart, where the T-Rex is big, bulky, and stupid.
Yeah, like the T-Rex.
They're a perfect counter.
Yeah. Like, the T-Rex is like scary. I would argue the raptors are scary because the T-Rex, like, well, first of all, if you just stay still, the T-Rex can't get you. So immediately, it's less threatening than a raptor because you just have to like not move, and the T-Rex will just not know you're there. You know, and raptors also they work in packs. Like, you'll see one ahead of you. But as was explained in the first film, there'll be 2 that will come in from the sides that you didn't even know were there. Like, you know, like the first film, there's like 3 raptors that we see in that sort of final act. Like, there's like the two in the kitchen, and then there's like a third one, and like that final scene of Jurassic Park is so like the third act is so well done and so well realized. Even when the T-Rex comes in and saves them, which is a bit like a get out of jail free card, it's still a great moment when that happens, because you just like, how are these people gonna get out of it? Like, it's just so tense, and you're just like, oh no, the raptors are gonna get, like, you're just like, they're gonna get out, but how? And then the T-Rex comes in and saves them, and it just makes it, that just is, another great part. But then in this one, it's just like, oh, the raptors actually aren't that dangerous. Get into a car and they just can't get you. Or just, climb up high and, I mean, they can get you, yeah, but just have your daughter do gymnastics and they'll be sent out a window, like...
Drop kick a T-Rex. Simple.
Yeah.
Based on the logic of that movie, she would be able to drop kick a T-Rex,
Yes,
but,
exactly.
I don't know. There's not much good things I can say about...
What is a good thing you can say, if you can think of anything?
I'm just trying to jog my memory of this movie.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it in, like, 2 years.
Yeah. It is very...
we haven't even spoken about we haven't even spoken about the third act yet.
Yeah. Okay, listen. I'm going to say this.
The third act, in my opinion, is ridiculous, but funny.
Yeah. Like, okay, here's my opinion on the third act. Well, first of all, the new Jurassic World film looks like it's going to be doing that for most of the movie, and I kind of like that. But the problem is with Lost World. First of all, I like the concept of a dinosaur, like a T-Rex loose in the city. I like that as a concept. In execution, I do not, because for several reasons. There are several problems with that. First of all, it happens way too late into the film. Like, you can't introduce like a T-Rex running through, like, where are they? LA or something, like that city.
Like San Diego.
It's San Diego, yeah. I watched this film a few days ago and I've forgotten. Like, you can't introduce that element so late into the film. Like, you need to introduce it either halfway or just make it the entire film. Which the new one looks like that's what it will be. Which I'm looking forward to how they're going to handle that. But
based on the end of the second Jurassic World, I don't even remember what it's called.
Fallen Kingdom.
There it is. All the dinosaurs are now in the world, so I'm guessing they're just going to play off of that. I don't know. But
yeah,
I feel like if the third act should have been in some place like New York, where the scenery would have been more iconic,
yeah, and
feel
plus
like
more
if
chaotic
they did
as well.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. Closer quarters, more damage. But I guess budgeting reasons would have prevented them from doing that. So
yeah. Plus, like, I do like the idea of it, but yeah, like, it just doesn't work as well as it should. Like, because this new Jurassic World, Dominion, like, most of the film looks like it'll be the people living with dinosaurs, which will be interesting because they will fuck up the ecosystem like royally. Like, like that mosasaur in the ocean is just going to be eating everything, and it's like it's pulling boats in, like it's going to screw up the ecosystem. But this is just like, it's one T-Rex, like that's not as big of a deal. And the way that it gets there is so mind-numbingly stupid. Like,
why would they take a T-Rex to a city?
Yeah, and it's just here's the other thing. So we've got a character in the film played by Pete Postlethwaite, who deserved better. Honestly, he's a good actor. He did not deserve to be in this. He's like the big game hunter who wants to capture and kill a T-Rex. Actually, he doesn't want to capture it. He wants to kill it. But Vince Vaughn swaps out his bullets. He takes out his bullets, so he doesn't have. Which, by the way, that tiny-ass gun was not going to kill a fucking T-Rex. Like, that gun is tiny compared to the T-Rex. It's not going to kill.
No way.
It's not killing any dinosaur that isn't, like, like a foot tall. It's not killing anything major. But they capture the T-Rex and they bring it to San Diego. Because as we're introduced to InGen more, and they are capturing a bunch of herbivore dinosaurs, and then Vince Vaughn just lets them out, and they attack and hurt a bunch of people. Because he's the good guy, but he's also causing a ton of pain and damage to people who, I mean, they're just being paid to do a job. Like the bosses, they're not nice people, but the other people are probably just doing their job. Like I can't be angry at them for doing their job, but yeah, so this film, yeah, so they put it in a boat with, I believe, well, they've got the baby T-Rex and they've got that elsewhere. And so they put this T-Rex underneath like a sort of a closing door. Like there's these closing doors that go like down, like they sort of fold upwards and then they go down. And so that's where the T-Rex is being stored. But the boat crashes into the dock and they go onto the boat and they find that all the crew have been eaten for somehow. And
hang on, yeah, when Raptors on board, and then they cut that from the movie, so they just died mysteriously.
Yeah, actually, that does sound that yeah, the whole Raptors being on the boat, that does sound familiar, but it seems like they didn't do that.
No, because what I've heard is that they cut that plot line from the film.
Oh. Well, that does explain why there's a bit where like the camera like zooms back and you just see like a hand just on a wheel with nothing attached. It's just a hand. Because I'm like, yeah, no,
yeah.
But still, then don't do that. Then if you're not gonna put the Raptors in it, don't have the ship crash into the dock and have all the crew be eaten.
Well, no, I think what happened, what I've heard is that they filmed it all, and then in post they realized, hang on, this doesn't really flow well, and it doesn't make sense. So we'll just cut all the Raptors, but we'll just make it. And then they kind of fumbled how the ship crashes.
Yeah,
the T-Rex is still. It doesn't make sense. It really does not.
It just if there's a problem with it, just it's yeah. And so then for some reason there's like a dead body, and he has the button to like open the door. And for some reason, some fucking idiot picks it up and he presses the button and it opens, and then the T-Rex gets out and starts running amok throughout San Diego. Like,
yeah, that's.
It's just so.
It's like the rat that freed Scott Lang in Endgame that saved the universe. It's something like that. Something stupid that needs to happen because there's no logical way for the plot to keep going.
That is actually a good analogy. But the difference is Endgame is a good movie, though. But yeah, it is, like, just so... I just honestly think, like, that's so poorly executed. And then the dinosaur and the T-Rex running throughout San Diego. Like, yeah, there's some cool moments where it crashes into a bus and people go flying out, and then it's looking for water and it's drinking pool water, which surely can't be tasting very good. Like, it's a ton of chlorine.
Yeah.
And then it eats the dog, and
Not the dog.
Yeah, not the dog. And then they go, and then Malcolm and what is her name? I've forgotten. Sarah Harding.
No idea. Sarah?
Yeah. Sarah Harding. Yeah, they go find the baby T-Rex, and then they make sure the adult T-Rex sees them, and then chases them, and then they put it back in the boat, and then the guy, Hammond's nephew, he gets eaten by the dinosaurs, and then it's sent back to Isla Sorna, and then
it is never mentioned again.
Yeah, and Hammond explains that people should just the island, the Isla Sorna is just a nature preserve, and they should just leave it alone. And it's just kind of like, what? Like, okay, we're just gonna ignore everyone who died on that island, like all the InGen workers, like employees and people working for InGen who died on that island. Like the scene in the long grass where all those people are just murdered by raptors, which is like one of the only decent scenes in the film. Honestly, it's like it's a decent scene, Or that guy who's like the second in command who gets killed by like the compies in a pretty extended scene.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
It's very brutal, and it's just very like
really brutal.
disturbing sounds, honestly. Like, I mean, the original, like, the Raptors have pretty, terrifying sounds, but, like, it's not too, like, it's just dinosaurs roar, like, it's dinosaur noise. It's not, a man being just seemingly pricked to death by tons of these little dinosaurs. Like, it's not like the same thing, but like, yeah, this film it just isn't. It could have been so good, and it just falls so flat, like so fast, and like, I'm so disappointed because I honestly thought before I rewatched it, like, this movie isn't as bad as everyone says it is, right? And then I rewatched it and I'm like, no, this is actually really, like, this isn't that good, is it? This is such a disappointment for a Jurassic Park sequel. Like, I'm just so...
Yeah, as a direct sequel to the original, you would think that they would put more care into it, but no, they did nothing.
They just wanted money, and it's just like... It just... There's, like, some good concepts and some good moments, like the scene where the T-Rexes destroy the truck. Like, that's a decent scene, and like a decent concept. But it's also just, like, not as good. Like, it just isn't as good as the original T-Rex scene. Honestly, it's just like, like, I'm just thinking if there's anything else that I just don't care about this. Like, just that I have this film. I just
honestly, I think we've covered everything with this film. There's not really much else but to say that it's just a shocking film.
Yeah. Actually, one final thing before we move on and rate this film. Another stupid fucking part is Sarah Harding so she gets a ton of blood on her jacket when she's, like, dealing with the baby T-Rex. And for some reason, she keeps the jacket. Like, why? Like, because it's...
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's not drying because of the humidity. And I'm like... Isn't that gonna attract dinosaurs? Isn't that gonna attract dinosaurs that want to eat you to you? Like, you're meant to be an expert on these, and you are doing something objectively stupid. Like, it's just so dumb. The people in the characters in this film are stupid. They're not real people. They're not likable. They just are bad. They are badly written characters in a film that, like, I just don't like. I just really was so disappointed with this film on this rewatch, honestly. I really did not like it. That, like, it just... Yeah, so this score might be a bit generous, but I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. It could be bumped down to a 4.
Really?
Yeah, it actually...
I'm going to give this a 2. Like, it's a 2, man. There's nothing redeemable about this movie.
Actually, you know what? I'm just changing my score now. It's a 4 out of 10. It is the worst Jurassic Park film. I actually think it is the worst Jurassic Park film that has ever been made. Because, like, 3 is not very good, but it isn't... Like, 3... I mean, we'll get onto that now, but... I'm actually changing it. It's a 4 out of 10. Lost World is a 4 out of 10. It just is not. It's just not that good. It's just really disappointing.
It's a good drunk movie. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not good. And it's a massive disappointment, and far and away the weakest. Like I'll have to rewatch the Jurassic World films, but I seriously doubt they are as bad and as just stupid as the Lost World. Like, I just don't, because I was basically realizing as we were going through this that I've been complaining a lot about this film, and I think rightfully so. It's just not very good.
Not a good movie. It's not a good movie.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a 4 out of 10 from me. It's a 2 out of 10 from you, which is...
Yeah, can't stand it.
I mean, fair enough. It definitely is not good. And then we've got sort of, I guess, I guess the one that's sort of in the middle. Jurassic Park 3. Yeah. Now, I'm
This
just
movie is
yeah.
a guilty pleasure for me. I love the Spinosaurus so much.
Oh yeah,
It is amazing.
yeah. Listen, like I think while this film isn't that great, I'll just be honest, it's not that great.
No, it's not a good film, but the Spinosaurus is just cool, you know?
But like, I will be honest, there's some kind of moments that I'm like, oh, this is like actually kind of a bit interesting. Like, I know a lot of people don't like the Spinosaurus because it kills the T Rex. And, like, listen, I understand that, but also the Spinosaurus is infinitely scarier than the T Rex.
Yeah, man.
On
It
so
can
many moments.
swim.
It
It
can.
can swim.
Yeah, also, it's got, like, massive. Like a spine. Like, the Spinosaurus has, honestly, a T Rex isn't that scary if I'm being completely honest. Like, it's not actually that as scary as like it. You know, like it's not actually that massively scary. But like the Spinosaurus is actually like I'd much rather face a T Rex than a Spinosaurus because T Rex if you just don't move, you're fine. Spinosaurus does not care. It will eat whatever. Like I just don't think like
And it's
this.
so much. Its mouth is so much bigger and
Yeah,
longer than a T Rex, so it
yeah,
can get to smaller places.
yeah. And plus like it's plus it can it's much bigger. It's got like it just has like a look like like the long snout and like the sail on its back. The long arms. It can swim. It can like grab like it can do all these things. And it's just like a T-Rex can't do that. T-Rex is not nearly as scary as a Spinosaurus. So like the fight isn't actually that bad to me because it kind of makes sense. It's like, yeah, a
Yeah, a
Spinosaurus would
Spinosaurus would absolutely mess up a T Rex. Let's just be honest.
yeah,
That
like
T Rex has such small arms that its only defense is its tail and its mouth. The
yeah.
Spinosaurus has got two arms that could absolutely rip you apart, a mouth, a tail, and a big sail spine thing.
Yeah. Like that T-Rex Spinosaurus fight is actually pretty decent and just it is quite brutal how it like bites its neck and then it just like holds its head and just twists it like that's just and just like the sound is like that's like actually pretty like that's it's actually not that like
Great
it's
sound design.
yeah it's a decent scene and people hate it for some moronic reason, especially because this isn't even the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. Like, this isn't the original T-Rex. This is a different one, possibly the baby from Lost World, depending on how much time has passed. Like I don't understand, the sort of time.
I'm sure T Rexes take 20 years to fully mature, so I'm not sure if it would be the original. Or not the original, the baby.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of like, I mean, I'm not. I don't know. Of course, I'm just sort of. I think I've said something about that, but like, it's not the original T Rex. Like that's the thing. Like it's not. If like it's not the original T Rex being killed. It's just a different one that doesn't. I don't have as much connection to that one, so I don't care as much. If you can have connection to a dinosaur. Yeah, this film really like. This film gets too much hate. Like, I think this film is... I mean, it's fine. It's not great. But, like... It's pretty... It's fine. Like, especially compared to The Lost World.
Film.
Like, compared to The Lost World, it is much better than The Lost World. Like if I was to look at, like... The Lost World is just... But I think people like Lost World more for some... Like, yeah, Lost World has got a higher IMDb score and a Rotten Tomatoes score, which is just insanity, because Jurassic Park 3 is better. Like, it is the better of the two films. Like, even though there's some really dumb stuff in it. But, like, it's like, the opening scene where we're introduced to, Eric, and they go parasailing, and then the boat's crew is killed, and we don't see who does it, like... I kind of like that.
Yeah,
Like, I think that's actually a pretty effective scene. That like Lost World just doesn't have anything like that. There's no real like, oh yeah, there's just a really sort of unnerving scene where people are killed by dinosaurs like off screen or anything. Like they, I, sort of tried to do that with the boat, and that it just comes off as silly. But like, yeah, this I think I think the opening scene is actually pretty decent.
I think yeah, it's. I'm trying to think. It's the one where they're on the parachuting. Yeah,
Yeah, they're parasailing. Yeah, and then
yeah.
the boat goes to like a cloud of, well, yeah, like a cloud basically, and then it comes out and then they're both eaten, and then there's like the thing, like the sort of cover on the top has like been ripped and everything, and they gotta get off before they crash into the rocks. Like that's basically, like, I think that's
Oh
actually,
yeah. I remember now. I remember
yeah,
that bit. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's a decent scene. It's not like amazing or anything, but it's just
yeah.
a decent scene. And then yeah, we meet Alan Grant. He's back, and Ellie Sattler, and they're not together anymore. Because that's what we
Oh
wanted.
no.
Like, come on, that's they're all they're happy together at the end of that film, and then this one, it's like, oh yeah, no, they're not together anymore, and it's just kind of like, well, that's a bit disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
kind of devalues the original a little
yeah, it
bit.
does. It does a bit, but like, I think Sam Neill is decent in this film. Honestly, he, like, to me it kind of seems like he wasn't as interested in, like, he came back obviously, but he wasn't, like, it doesn't seem like, I don't know. He's a bit off in this, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, he's not bad. I wouldn't say he gives a bad performance, but I would say that, like, he just, is fine.
He just phones it in a little bit. Just doesn't really put his all.
Yeah. But I could say that about most of the cast, honestly. I don't think there's, again, like, the original Jurassic Park is the only one with, like, really great actors in it. Well, not even that. All of them have good actors, great actors even, but the first one's the only one where they are good.
Yeah,
Like this, like, for example, William H Macy in it, who's Paul Kirby's the dad. Like, he's, like, I've seen him in good stuff. Like in Fargo, he's excellent in Fargo. But in this, he's just sort of like, he's just there. He's an actor. And, he's just a character in the film. He's not really that much.
yeah.
Like, and I just don't really. The one of the problems I have with this film, though, is, like, I just don't care about these. Like, I do sort of understand that they want to save their son from this island, because they're worried about, because they think being eaten. He's been eaten, or he's been lost for 8 weeks at that point. But it's a very lazy way that they get Alan Grant back onto the island, because it's just like this first movie again, just not as, like, at least with The Lost World, he had like a more personal reason of, like, oh, my girlfriend's on that island, I kind of want to go save her, whereas this one, it's just like, oh, money, and, like, that's just the first film, just not as good.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but, like, I just don't think the third film justifies, again, just like the second, its creation.
Yeah,
Probably happens. I'm just so biased to that Spinosaurus. I love that thing, but apart from that, I feel like it's just doesn't really need to have been made.
yeah. Yeah, or if they were gonna make it, do something, make a better story to tell. Like it's so, well, it's kind of just a bit. It's very basic. Like, I mean, the original was basic, but it was the first one, so you can sort of forgive it. Like, you need, like, in a franchise like this, you need to have the sequels building upon the the greatness of the original. Like that. For example, Terminator 2. just builds upon and elevates the original Terminator. Like Empire does the same, Last Crusade, like all these other films, they help to elevate these films. And they make the originals better whilst also being great films in their own right. And none of the Jurassic Park films have done that. They've all just been several totems below the original in terms of quality.
Yeah, I think the only film that exceeds that sort of average film is Jurassic World, but only just by a bit. It is interesting, just
like
because it's a whole new setting.
like Jurassic World, I would say is the only decent sequel. It's the only decent sequel, but and I say decent because it's not that great. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's decent, but that's it, And I just kind of wish that the Jurassic Park sequels were good. Like, because there's so much they can do with those films, all this, like, dinosaurs and all this great creative sort of... And you've got so many different dinosaurs you can play with and create and do so much creative stuff with. And then they just sort of always go back to the same dinosaurs every film, T-Rex, raptors, Brachiosaurus. Like, each film, like, were there even any new species? I mean, compies, actually, were like each film introduces one new breed.
There was, in the second one, they introduced compies, and I think Gallimimus, which is like some running dinosaur, which is...
Oh, no, Gallimimus were in the original one. Yeah.
Were they?
Yeah,
they were. Yeah,
it's the scene where they run into, like, the field, and then, like, the T-Rex bursts through, like, a bunch of trees and eats one of them.
Yeah, I don't think they introduced too many, actually.
No. This one, like, I'm a big fan of watching behind the scenes and making of documentaries on films, because I just find those super interesting. And they were talking about how they wanted to introduce a bunch of new different types of dinosaurs for this new one, because I guess they'd sort of realized that, like, the second one didn't actually have too many brand new ones. It was just sort of more of the same with, like, one or two new ones. And so they've got Spinosaurus as, like, the main sort of big antagonistic dinosaur. They've got Ankylosaurus. They have, like, pterodactyls, which you see sort of a little bit at the end of the Lost World, but they don't really do much.
Birds. I remember the birds. They were cool.
Yeah.
I don't know much. I can't really give too much critique and actual, like, proper discussion on these two sequels, because I haven't watched them in ages.
Yeah.
But I just remember watching the third one and thinking, damn, birds are cool. And I just remember the pacing being off a little bit.
Yeah, it's...
For the third one especially.
Yeah, the third one... Well, first of all, I think the third one's only like 90 minutes long, which is not that's not a long time for this kind of... This movie needs like 2 hours, But, like... I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Like I think this movie really... I do think the introduction to the Spinosaurus is actually a really good scene. Like, when the three like associates, I guess, they go off into the forest with guns to find them, and then you just hear this roar, and you're like, that, and one of them's like, oh, it sounds like a T-Rex, and it's like, no, it's something bigger than that. And you just hear the gunshots, and like, that's a good introduction to to the Spinosaurus. I think, like, it the plane, and one of the associates, they leave without him because, they say he's a professional and he can handle himself. Which just doesn't seem like a good idea, honestly.
And then doesn't Spinosaurus just walk out and just eat him?
Yeah, like, so the plane is, like, going across the runway, and he walks out and he's, like, telling them to stop, and then they don't stop, and then Spinosaurus comes out and he tries running, and it grabs him, and so they have to quickly, like, tilt up, and they kind of bounce off the Spinosaurus, and like, blood gets all over the window, and then they crash, and then they're stuck, and then it finds them and it eats another one of them, but they manage to escape. And that leads into the Spinosaurus versus the T-Rex, which is a good scene, actually. I think it's because just the dinosaur fights are actually pretty, decent, like, pretty entertaining, even though they're not like very like they're entertaining scenes, but they don't really add too much to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they didn't improve that with the later films either, with Jurassic World.
yeah,
Um, those ones are just kind of dinosaurs clawing at each other. Kind of
yeah,
boring.
yeah, yeah. In this film, as we were talking about before, the raptors aren't as threatening in this one. You know, like I'm just like, yeah, there's raptors. Oh, they just locked it. They just pushed it. Oh, they just like pushed the door and it's got stuck behind there. Like that's all it took. Okay, well, and this film is really obsessed with raptors and trying to like the stuff early on where Alan talks about how they were, you know, as smart as primates, and then how they, you know, could communicate while the dinosaurs would just sort of they would roar, but it wasn't as a communication, and the raptors, you know, are more intelligent. And it is kind of just like, didn't we establish that in the first film that they're like the most intelligent species of done like the
Yeah.
like
They retread a lot of ground in the sequels that they made in the first movie, which I find annoying when companies or franchises do that. Is just, why retread ground when you can just keep going and just
yeah,
build something new?
yeah, exactly, like
Stop wasting time.
exactly, because it's just like, yeah, we know they're intelligent, and you know, you don't need to tell us. You know, it's the you know, like they show, because that's another thing is, you know, we see them doing things, and then Alan's like, oh, this is what he's doing, that thing I mentioned before, and it's just the classic of like, you know, you show, don't tell, just be like, you know, just show
Yeah.
on Grant's face like, oh, he's doing something, like, you know, because the audience is probably smart enough to figure out that's what it's doing. We don't need him to say, oh, it's calling for help, because it's just like, well, what else is it doing, you know?
Yeah. Why would it just be talking into the sky sometimes?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, yeah, and it's just, yeah, the raptors look kind of weird in this one because they found out at this point, they're like, oh yeah, some dinosaurs had feathers, and raptors have like, they give
Yeah.
them like, but they don't really look like feathers. They just look like,
Dicks.
just it just looks weird. Like, I'm just looking at one of them now, and it has like, well, feathers, but it kind of doesn't really look all that much like feathers. It just looks more like it just got stuff like pointing out of its head, like on porcupines, like yeah, it just looks like that, just like a
Yeah.
few on its head, and it's just, yeah, especially because it's like the only dinosaur we've seen with feathers too. Like,
Yeah.
just like, why this?
Apparently they're changing the T-Rex in the new movie to have feathers as well,
Oh,
which is
are they?
weird. Yeah. Just keep a classic looking raptor because continuity reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't change it now, because it's just like, this is the sixth movie, and we've never seen most of these dinosaurs. Like, most of these dinosaurs, we've never seen them with feathers, and now you're gonna be like, feathers, you know,
Yeah,
just
wait, now that you mention that, the feathers in the newer Jurassic World, the raptors in the new Jurassic World movies don't have feathers.
oh my god.
It doesn't make sense.
No, there's no consistency. Well, also, like, the thing is, the dinosaurs in these films are very unrealistic. Like, they like, it's cool because we don't know what dinosaurs actually look like, so they had to make a guess. But it's just like, why are you guys suddenly trying to act like these are like accurate to real dinosaurs? Like, no one,
Yeah,
you know, like, no one's like, oh, I wish these were more realistic dinosaurs. It's just like, nobody cares, you know.
as long as they look intimidating, that's all
Yeah.
you need.
And as long as you can tell what kind of dinosaur it is, I don't think you need to be more quote unquote realistic by giving it feathers. It's just weird.
Yeah,
I didn't actually know that for the longest time. That was what it was with the raptors. I was just like, some of these raptors look different now. They've got like weird things on their head, and then there's like the classic, you know, original first two movies raptors. I was just like, that's very interesting.
it's just weird. Like, it's one of those changes that just don't make sense, but
Yeah,
just
yeah,
don't, also don't improve the movie.
it's completely irrelevant, and doesn't make the movie better or worse. It's just a weird tangent.
I don't know.
Anyway, the raptors, they get attacked by raptors again. People get attacked by raptors in every single one of these movies, and honestly, it's pretty boring now. Like we've seen it all now. Like I don't.
Yeah, I think the switch up to Chris Pratt's character, what's his name? I don't even know. Being
Owen, I
able
think it
to
is.
sort of Owen, yeah, being able to sort of loosely control the Raptors was a nice change.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I was doing something
I
interesting with the raptors as well.
Yeah, and I think the new movie is all about Is all about Blue, the raptor's child, being stolen, even though the whole world is infested with dinosaurs now.
Yeah, that seems
So
like a
I don't.
weird. Just like I would much rather, if that's what they're gonna do, I'd much rather just a film of people having to live with dinosaurs.
Yeah,
Honestly, that'd be way more interesting to me. Just being like, "Yep, this is daily life." Like because I think like films that deal with like the ramifications of something massive, like the beginning of Avengers Endgame, for example, is basically dealing with the ramifications of Infinity War, and that's a great part of that film. And then it does kind of
mm,
go a bit downhill afterwards. And I would just have preferred if Jurassic World Dominion was just, hey, people have to live with dinosaurs, and this is like what it is like. I've just much preferred if that's what they were doing.
But well, how did this movie end? Oh yeah, the river fight in the
Yeah,
cage with,
yeah,
oh, not the cage, on the boat with
on the boat, and they
Spinosaurus.
get in a cage. Yeah, I actually think this is a pretty decent ending. Well, actually, we've just skipped over. We meet the pterodactyls, and they're pteranodons actually in their bird cage. Yeah, and one of the guys, Billy, he goes to save Eric and then is seemingly killed, and then we find out at the end, oh no, he's not dead, he's alive. Just takes away
Yeah,
any stakes. But
a bit weird.
yeah, that's a decent part. I do like actually. There's a really nice bit where they have to go across this bridge into sort of seemingly darkness, and then the bridge is sort of moving a bit, and the kid's like, "Mum," and then the Pteranodon comes through, and she's like, "Oh, it's not his mum; it's a giant, bird dinosaur."
Yeah, that bit was kind of actually really cool. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I just think it was cool because you thought it would have been the kid's mum, but I don't know. I feel like they used far away with the flying dinosaurs. I
mm-hmm.
think they actually used how terrifying they can be as a really effective sort of gimmick in the film.
Yeah, because like dinosaurs just like inherently dinosaurs are scary,
Yeah,
like. And so there's so many great, because like you could do like a really effective horror film with like certain dinosaurs. Like you could do a great horror film with like just with raptors. Like because raptors are inherently very scary dinosaurs. You could
yeah,
do a horror type film with pteranodons exactly. Like you could do so many great horror films. You could do like a Jaws kind of film with the mosasaur. Like that kind of thing. Like you could do a lot of great horror films with dinosaurs, and instead they're just sort of used to make massive blockbusters, which isn't a
mm.
bad thing, but just sort of like,
I think if there was an actual well-made horror movie about dinosaurs, I think I don't know if it would sell well, but I think it would do. It would just be a really good film.
yeah, like I think people would be interested in seeing it because like, because the Jurassic Park films, while people seemingly like them, it is just kind of like, but if we did like a hot, because people would be like, oh, this is a slightly different take on dinosaurs. This is now like a pure horror film,
Yeah,
with dinosaurs. But
I think some interesting things can be done there.
yeah, and but yeah, this sort of final battle against the Spinosaurus, I actually think it's a bit of fun. Honestly, them having to fight this giant, the Spinosaurus. It's raining, there's fire, there's all this great imagery, and yeah, I think it's a pretty fun ending, and actually, a pretty good way of bringing the Spinosaurus back again, and sort of wrapping up the. I mean, it's not an arc, but like the wrapping up the whole that dinosaur and having it end, and ending off with that.
Yeah, I think just completely forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, no, it's gone. It's gone.
It's okay.
Completely gone.
Yeah, I just think this is it's very well shot, very well sort of technically, because that's a lot to work with. You've got the animatronic of the dinosaur, you're working in water, which is a massive pain to do. You've got fire, which just adds danger to it. You've got and it's a pretty decent scene. It's shot, relatively well. It's not. You can make out what's happening. Like it's just I like it. I think it's like it's good. It's not great.
Yeah, it's just a solid action scene. I think,
but
the ending.
But it's a fun scene in a way that Lost World doesn't really have anything like that.
Yeah.
And also a sort of running bit throughout this film is they keep being followed by raptors because one of the guys stole some eggs like an idiot, which is just like, okay, that wasn't really necessary.
That kind of makes sense because he's like a tourist almost.
Yeah, and
he has no idea what's going on, so him taking souvenirs like that in a way kind of makes sense, but also it's just stupid.
Well, he tries to explain it as like, because he works with Grant. He's like, we could sell these eggs, and we could get money to continue to fund the dig. And I'm just like, come on, man, that's so weak. It's such a weak way. Like, if it was like a different character, maybe someone like if they had like another person who didn't know what they were doing, who's just really dumb and or just sort of was greedy or something like that would have worked. But for that character to do that, it was just a bit like, I mean, you're just doing this to try and create conflict. But they give the eggs to the raptors, and then the Navy come to the beach.
Rocked up.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, because they get a phone and Grant calls Ellie, but for some reason she knows people. I think her like partner is like in the military or something, and that's how they're able to get there so quickly. I think, I don't actually know. It's not very well explained. It's a real Deus Ex Machina, and just like a get out of jail free card again to just have the main characters survive, But like, it's a fine movie. It's okay.
It's alright. Spinosaurus is dope.
Yeah. It's overhated. Lost World is far and away the worst one. This one is just fine.
Yeah.
So I'm giving Jurassic World 3 a 5 out of 10.
I'm gonna give it a 5.
A 5 as well.
Because Spinosaurus.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. The Spinosaurus does elevate it. So, yeah, we agree that the original is the best, and Lost World is the weakest by... yeah, and then 3 is in the middle. Yeah, any sort of final things you want to say about before we wrap up?
Not really. I think we covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, so this is... Yeah, next week I'll be covering the Jurassic World films, 1 and Fallen Kingdom, which should be interesting, because I've watched them like once each a while ago. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. It was... It's interesting how we had the same opinions for everything. We were just gushing over how great the original is, complaining about how crap Lost World is, and just being sort of indifferent on Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah.
But,
it's an average film.
Yeah. But, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. Next week will be the second part of the discussion on these films, and, yeah. Check out the previous ones. Rowan, you've done a couple before. You did Get Out and Pulp Fiction. Were those the two you've done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't do Pulp Fiction, did I?
No, I think you did.
I definitely did Get Out, and Pulp Fiction, I might have.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, thank you all for listening to this one. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see all of you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye bye.